Hi, I'm Flask. I'm just warning right now, this is probably not going to be a comprehensive list of changes between the original and the remaster of Dead Rising. These are just things I noticed during my first playthrough and a little after, and I have not thoroughly fact-checked them, so feel free to post corrections in the comments if you have any. These are in no particular order, and I won't be mentioning things like subtle gameplay differences because there is of course an engine change and that's expected. Some of the mall areas are oddly silent, as in a lack of ambient music and zombie mulling noise. I'm not sure if it's partially on the sound mixing, which seems to be not great, but it's at least evident that some places feel off somehow, and then you realize it's because there's no mall music playing or it's like extremely faint. There are new PA advertisements and announcements that you'll hear occasionally, but as for the ambient noise, here's some of the original game for comparison on Xbox 360. It's some combination of zombie noises, frank noises, faint mall music, and miscellaneous other sounds.
Follow me!
The cop zombies with guns now fire their guns, and they tag you a surprising amount. You can pause cutscenes now. There are now autosaves at every cutscene and area transition, in addition to your manual saves. You can now much more easily manage clothing, because everything you pick up gets added to your closet back at the security room. Certain costumes from the first game are now unlocked by completing challenges. You can now fast forward time at save points, at 2 different speeds. This is true for Infinity Mode as well, and you can also suspend your Infinity Mode session and resume it later. Speaking of which, in Infinity Mode, cultists and Special Forces soldiers now appear as the days progress, and they will drop boxes sometimes. Also, zombies will now occasionally drop boxes as well, and these boxes have a chance of containing food, meaning Infinity Mode really can potentially go on indefinitely now. In gameplay, you can mark up to 4 cases at a time as active, and they'll display as waypoints with a gold symbol for the main case, and the numbers 1 through 3 for each activated side mission. There are an impressive number of settings options available. You can change all sorts of things to suit your preferences. The menu is entirely different looking, and there's no menu music now, which would reflect the current mall music, but the settings are greatly expanded, which is appreciated. They changed the control layout for controller. You can change the button and key bindings, but for my first run I wanted to try the new default control scheme. Probably the biggest differences are how the use button on controller is changed from B to Y, and item switching in your inventory is now right and left on the D-pad, rather than the shoulder buttons. There are other differences, but those took the most getting used to. And calling survivors being R3 now instead of Y was also a little stumbling point. I'm honestly not sure why they changed these things. In my opinion, the new scheme is slightly worse. The button presses for mashing out of a zombie grab are now displayed during the grab as up to 4 different moves assigned to each face button, and they are unlocked as you level up. You can now slowly move while aiming a firearm. You can no longer jump on boxes to burst them open. You can only pick up and throw them, or knee stomp them to open them. It seems like they nerfed the mini chainsaws, which were a very dominant weapon in the original. I'm not sure if they rebalanced other weapons as well, but the mini chainsaws just don't carve people up anymore. They only do damage every few hits, it seems. One of the noticeable UI design changes is that the cases are now displayed in Polaroid photos, an arrangement of Polaroid photos instead of little connected boxes like in the original. Weapons now have durability meters on display, so you can see the durability remaining for any weapons you possess. There's now a compass instead of an objective arrow. The objectives and cases, scoops, are now on the left side of the screen instead of the right. They changed the survivor health bars from green to blue.
You win.
There's no longer a little box showing the survivor's status when they're off screen with like a real-time video of that survivor. Now it's just a little symbol. And no symbols above survivors' heads to indicate when they're close enough to an area transition to travel with you, as in Dead Rising 2 and onward. So a little quality of life omission there. Naturally, there is a graphics overhaul. Character models are different, voices are all new. There are minor true alterations, like Cheryl's model wearing a slightly less risque outfit. She's the one who asks for her photo to be taken later on. Some of the new models look like literally just upscales. Some of them look like upgrades. Adam the Clown, I would say, is one of the best. And then some of them look like questionable side grades, or maybe even worse to the eye. I don't care for Frank's remastered appearance, personally, in comparison to the original. I think the biggest alteration is how Larry the Butcher's appearance and voice have been so radically changed. He's just a very different character. Most mirrors don't work. They're just a blur or have some ghostly looking image of Frank. Only the ones in the bathrooms work, and maybe the gym. I'm not sure if it's a setting or a bug or what. Skateboards are absurdly big now for some reason. Some of the areas like Paradise and Wonderland plazas have a much more elaborate theming in their environmental design, like ocean and space themes, respectively.
And we hope to see you again soon.
Camera stores have upgrades for your cameras, like flash and focus and such. You can no longer take erotica photos, which changes certain photos to the drama or no genre instead. You can still take those photos, though. It does make Kent a little less creepy, but it doesn't change Cheryl's side quest at all.
Good.
They added a rocket launcher, which was cut content from the original game. You can make them at the Blender with the Item Combiner magazine in your second playthrough and on, I think. Or get them later in the game from certain soldiers. That's the main way. They added some new books, magazines to the game. There's a blender in the security room now. The mixed juice Quick Step has been renamed Fleetfoot for some reason. There are now stairs in front of the rooftop vent leading to the security room, rather than a climbable block like in the original. The space in front of the vent, in front of the duct, is also wider than it used to be. There are now a large number of bright green exit signs around the mall that point to other areas of the mall, to transition points.
Hey, you!
They added a ladder going into the ceiling to the bathroom shortcut between Paradise Plaza and Wonderland Plaza, the one that Greg shows you. I think before it was just implied you're climbing into the ceiling to get around. There are now physical barriers at those transition points between zones that previously were just open, such as the ramp leading to and from the movie theater having a metal shutter to click on. It helps for knowing when you're about to transition to the next area. Some of the hitboxes are worse than before. Like for some examples, you can't shoot through the chain link fence on the roof anymore, so you can't kill zombies out in the parking lot. And zombies feel like they magnetize to you from further away and more frequently, but maybe that's just a rosy tint to my memory. Frank's leveling seems to happen much faster if you're being at all diligent about taking PP opportunities when they arise. The zombie kill count for the Zombie Genocider challenge now carries over between runs, so you no longer need to do it in one playthrough. Speaking of which, the Zombie Genocider achievement is now called the Zombie Annihilator achievement, and the Frank the Pimp achievement, where you escort 8 female survivors at once, has been changed to the Grateful 8. This is my subjective take, but it seems like psychopaths have been tuned a bit. For instance, Cletus in the gun shop seemed easier than the original, whereas Sean the cult leader seemed more difficult. In this clip, I did make him look like a chump by beating him to death with a fish in less than 30 seconds, but just trust me that he moves like an anime villain if you let him. You can now spare Thomas of the Sniper family if you kill his father and brother first and leave him. Though you still can't bring him back to the safe house. He just stays there.
Staying here with my brother and daddy.
Survivor AI on the whole feels like it was improved. It's kind of hard to quantify, but it does feel improved to me. Survivors will still reset to following you after any cutscene, even if you previously placed a go there waypoint. Survivors will now occasionally point out PP opportunities. They'll mention possible survivor locations and even unusual weapons in the area. There will be a little marker that appears on screen wherever the item is. And they appear on the map as well. I'm not sure how random this is, but I believe affinity affects it. And speaking of which, you can now give survivors you're escorting certain weapons or items that they ask for, that they have an affinity for. Which will upgrade their affinity with Frank and improve their abilities and intelligence, supposedly.
Leave it to me.
All survivor dialogue and Otis receiver calls are now fully voiced, including Frank's dialogue and response.
I'll find your baby for you, lady.
No
First,
way.
let's get you someplace safe.
Just leave me alone! They hate her! Those damn zombies hate my baby! Right in front of me! Oh god! I've never heard her cry like that. Please. Just leave me alone.
You can now do whatever you want during calls from Otis. You can skip lines of dialogue during conversations. But Survivor voice lines are just wrong sometimes, like the wrong voice for the character while you're traveling.
You'll have to drag her out of here. I want her to get out of this alive.
There's no end to these zombies. It's like you kill one and two more take its place.
Also, the survivors will occasionally chime in with advice in addition to other help, and it could be humorously ironic who'd be saying a particular line based on their personality.
There's a gun shop in the North Plaza. I think we could do with some firearms right about now.
Overall, most of the new voices are kind of just lateral moves. In my opinion, Frank's new voice is not as good, but you get used to it.
You know how to use this?
Kinda. I've covered wars, you know.
And Brad's new voice has the lowest lows out of anyone, but you do get used to him too. Others are quite faithful.
A hot-headed, underhanded hotshot paparazzi with nothing better to do than to invade people's privacy.
Some lines of dialogue are altered, like how Cliff just calls you a mole and an animal instead of a Viet Cong and a communist.
Aren't I? You are nothing but a filthy animal!
Some of the things that people were worried about them removing, though, like Joe's perversity and the references to American consumerism and such, those things are very much still in the game. It is, after all, intrinsic to the plot.
Accidentally made zombie livestock. We were trying to mass produce cattle. Do you have any idea how much meat Americans consume in a single day?
And by the way, the soundtrack seems to be maybe entirely intact. You know, Capcom said as much prior to release, but hopefully it's completely true. So, there was a lot of adding and subtracting and rearranging of elements, but what's the end result? They didn't screw it up. You know, it still possesses the same fun as the original Dead Rising had. Players might like certain things better or worse, of course, but for me, it was a cumulative lateral move in most respects. There are definitely elements from the original I miss, and new elements from this remake that I really appreciate. But overall, I enjoyed myself with DRDR, and that's all I can ask for. Thanks for watching.